Or Amber, was it Amber?
Amber set everything up, so.
Okay, Amber.
Well, we have to decide today, right?
Yeah, did you not send the?
You sent an email wanting to set up an earlier.
Okay.
Down the road, yeah.
No, this
Hey,
one.
James.
Amber.
How are you? Good.
We're starting. Okay. I want to welcome everyone to the Transient Guest Tax Committee on April the 28th, 2015. And we have a new member on the committee from the council, Jeff Cohen, and we want to welcome Councilman Cohen to the committee. Would the committee members state their names for presence?
Richard Harmon.
Jeff Cohen.
Okay. Our first order on the agenda is to approve the minutes from February 20th, 2015. So I would entertain a motion to do so.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
before approving the minutes, I think I would recommend that they be amended to reflect Mr. Meinhardt's correct spelling of his last name.
Definitely. We'll make that correction. Angela, did you catch that? Okay. Okay.
Otherwise, I make a motion to approve as amended.
Okay. Can I hear a second?
Yes, second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. The third thing on the agenda is to discuss and possible action on the Historic Tourism Committee's recommendation for the Heritage Tourism Funds, and that is particularly why we're meeting today, because we need to get this done before the end of the month. So I think Bill Fyander, you want to?
Madam Chair, so it's my understanding that we had forwarded the summary of the Grant Review Committee's recommendations. Is it, and you have not received that?
I think we saw the breakdown
Okay.
of, but we did not see any applications,
Okay.
and we saw the recommendation from
Okay.
the committee.
If it's okay, I will summarize and hopefully, and I know they're making some copies that you can also follow along. I apologize that did not get to you the way it was supposed to. Okay, so there is a Historic Tourism Review Committee, which is made up of the Landmarks Commission, a member of the Lodging Association, a member of Visit Topeka, and the Tourism Alliance and Freedom's Frontier. And so there's 13 individuals. The applications were reviewed, and I'll just go down and kind of summarize what the recommendation was. There was 5 applications for improvement grants. Those are the hard construction type projects. Topeka Cemetery, Jayhawk Theater, Shawnee County Historical Society, which is the Ritchie House, Constitution Hall, and then Charles Curtis House. Of those 5, ultimately the committee recommended funding for 3 of those. The 3 that they recommended funding for were the Jayhawk Theater, which for a total of grant for a total of $100,000 for a marquee, historic marquee they used to have on the outside there on 7th Street. The second recommendation would be for Constitution Hall of $100,000, or I'm sorry, not $100,000. $105,000 for Constitution Hall for interior electrical, HVAC, and plumbing for restrooms, and exterior roof insulation. And then the third project that was recommended for approval was the Charles Curtis House. They're doing some window restoration, that and some exterior painting. That totaled $10,600. So between those 3 recommendations, a total of $215,737 that was recommended for improvement grants. The 2 that were not recommended, Topeka Cemetery was not recommended. They were proposing to restore a vault, records vault inside the building at the cemetery. And then the Ritchie House was proposing a sign, and the committee felt that that wasn't, did not arrive at a priority, since the guidelines talk about restoring an original part of the site. And since this was introducing a new sign to the site, so it fell below the other priorities there. So those were the improvement grants. Then below that, there is a second batch of planning and marketing grants, and there was 3 proposals there. 2 by the Topeka Planning Department. 1 was for downtown historic district design guidelines, and that would help put together a set of guidelines for the what we hope to be the historic district downtown in the next couple of weeks. And then we also are looking to expand the College Hill Historic District, and so to do that, that involves a survey of the rest of the neighborhood. So both of those grants that we're requesting will be used to leverage state grant money, and so that is, which is actually a requirement for getting those grants. So we're using that money. This money alone won't help us do the project. We have to then, we've already made the application to the state. So if we get this grant with the historic tourism, then we can leverage the state grant, and they will be deciding that in May 8th, so in a couple of weeks from now, which is why we're trying to do this. And then there's a third item for planning and marketing grant. That was also the Jayhawk Theater. They're looking at doing some a theater marketing plan. They have started looking at repurposing the building more for movie house events as opposed to live events. So I think getting more exposure and recognition is the idea behind that, which is also the idea behind the marquee, because many people don't know Jayhawk Theater is even there when you drive by. So all told, the summary is the budget that at the end of the year, the budget that we were given, $239,000 out of the bed tax fund that is devoted for these purposes. And of that, we would have $216,000 going to improvement grants, and roughly $23,000 going for the planning and marketing grants. So with that, any questions?
Questions?
Madam Chairman, Bill, under the improvement grants, next to Topeka Cemetery, there's an asterisk.
Mm-hmm.
Why? What does the asterisk mean?
That was on the original summary sheet to the review committee. There was a asterisk to explain that this was pending historic landmark status. All the improvement grants have to be a local, state, or national landmark. And so the Topeka Cemetery the building was neither, at the time of application, they made an application to become a local historic landmark when they applied. So that asterisk is to say their status is pending.
Okay.
So assuming if they were to be approved for funding, they would still have to, they wouldn't qualify until they are approved for a local historic status
Okay,
in a few months.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mhm.
Councilman Cohen, do you have any questions?
Nope, not.
Okay. Bill, the Ritchie House, that was because it was not a restoring project, it was a new sign, is that what? But yet the marquee for the Jayhawk Theater, that was an existing marquee.
It is. It's the canopy is in place actually, and so historically there was a marquee sign for the theater. It had been removed. At least the facade of it had been removed, and so the canopy was still there. So the proposal was to restore that existing historically existing sign to the building. Yeah.
And from just the little bit of experience I've had with this, these are improvements that are intended to be open, for tourists. I mean, that's what the guest tax is supposed to help, is to bring tourists into Topeka. So with Jayhawk Theater and Constitution Hall, the intent is there to get them up to the ability to be open for tourists. Is that correct? I mean, that's...
Exactly. Yes, they're obviously, when you start out with the properties and the buildings, they're not ready for public assembly. So the whole point of the money and the grants is to get them to that point so that they can be open on a regular scheduled basis.
Okay.
Yes.
And then I also have a question about the planning grants. How will those, the grant itself, will those end up bringing tourists into Topeka? I mean, what's being done with College Hill and downtown that you feel like this is getting it in the same boat as we have the Constitution Hall and Jayhawk Theater, that we need to improve it so that we can get it to the point of being open for tourists?
Sure. Thank you. As you remember, last year we had downtown historic district nomination as part of one of the grants. I think the other one was College Hill survey. So basically, these are two follow-ups to those grants from last year. First, downtown as a historic district, and it's something unique and able to preserve. I think downtown would definitely be something that would to attract visitors. That is the whole point for doing a historic district, as well as those economic incentives. So I think that's probably that's understandable. When you start to get out into the neighborhoods, we can point to studies that have shown how the heritage visitor spends more money and things of that. They're not coming in bulk quite like people would come to the Capitol, but still there's not a place where you want to go advertise a non-historic neighborhood walking tour, for instance. I mean, so you have to, in many cities, you have to establish a historic district to begin to market it. And so we can't get there from here without doing the survey and the nomination to market it as a historic district. And quite honestly, that in of itself is something that would draw not just people, but our own residents as well. So that's
possibly like a walking tour that New Orleans has with a garden district. Wichita has a historic Old Town district that you can actually get set up to go into people's houses and hear the history of the house. Is that what is kind of in the offering?
Yeah, you're right. And my point would be exactly that. You can't even begin to talk about what to market until you have something to market. And so much like we're putting money into buildings that aren't really yet accessible to the public for that sort of reason, same thing with neighborhoods, in this case College Hill, which has a storied history, and you would put that together as a package for tourists and visitors.
Okay. So this $23,000 that we're spending on planning grants, marketing grants, planning and marketing, it's pretty set that we really need to do those types of things before we actually even go after. I mean, you have to have the studies to even get further additional funding from a lot of grantees, or grantors.
Correct. When the program was set up, there's 3 levels here of getting to the point, which is historic status. One is you have to do the survey, and we don't have that anywhere in our budget to do that. So this was the first step. And the next step after the survey is a nomination of that area or individual property. So and then the third step is actually we put together, which was the downtown, is design guidelines to make it a much more efficient, predictable for developers and the Landmarks Commission to review proposals, so that we do know what to preserve and what's unique for that district. So there's really 3 levels, and it's just fortunate that we're kind of following the 2 projects. We're following those levels, and we're at the end. For the downtown one, that would be the last thing you do for downtown. Hopefully, we'll come back and have a nomination for College Hill after we do the survey. But yeah, and they cannot you cannot spend any more than 15% of the overall balance of the fund. So, unless there was another source for that, which we don't have, those things wouldn't happen. Those surveys, those nominations, those design guidelines, the soft stuff wouldn't happen.
Okay. Well, before we take action on the recommendations, I would like to open it up for public comment. Anyone who wants to indicate their support or non-support or whatever. Muriel, I don't know if you want to make any comments about how you came to the conclusions you did too?
Yeah. Chairman Schwartz, thank you. Chairwoman Schwartz, thank you. My name is Merle Riedel. I'm chair of the Topeka Landmarks Commission, and with a couple people from the tourism sector, we kind of made that initial review committee that looked at these. What's that? Are you talking to me? Okay. So we looked at these, and there was a lot of, obviously there's more nominations than we had funds to look at, so it was challenging. We gave all the people that were there at the meeting, we gave them an opportunity to kind of talk about their projects, summarize their projects. That allowed our committee members to answer or to ask any questions. And then we kind of went through and talked about each one of these, and then made our motions to support the ones that we thought fed into heritage tourism, did a good job of helping preserve our built environment. So it was a good experience, and yeah, we were satisfied. Did you have any questions of me, ma'am?
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to, Chris or?
Yes, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. I was so hopeful that the Heritage Tourism Review Committee would use its evaluation sheets, and this was not done. And I do have questions whether or not the evaluation considered both the ordinance and the guidelines. And I'm hoping that you'll fully fund Constitution Hall, the Ritchie House project under the marketing guidelines, which I feel it qualifies for. It was unfortunate that was not put into that category. It's very important that we understand that tourism is based on what's unique, particularly heritage tourism. If Topeka is going to play a part in Freedom's Frontier National Heritage Area with the Park Service and with the Kansas Historical Society, I do believe we must look more carefully at what does heritage tourism mean. It is wonderful when we invite local visitors, and I in my neighborhood participate in historic preservation, and I wish there were more public funding for that, but there isn't. And I was very much involved in 2003 when the funding was sought to provide funding for the kinds of projects that the guidelines in the ordinance address. There was at that time, as there is now, funding for the kinds of projects that Mr. Finder has very eloquently supported. There just isn't enough for all. And so this funding is for heritage tourism. Thank you.
Did anyone have any questions? Okay. Muriel?
Just want to respond. The concept of putting Shawnee County Historical Society's request for the sign as a planning and marketing project, that would be tricky because that's match funds. So that organization would then have to turn around and raise $9,000, and by the time they've raised $9,000, they could have actually completed that project on their own. So
Okay.
it doesn't quite work as well.
Okay, thank you. And as I understand, it really was not restoring, it would be a new sign, so, okay. I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
question. Do you want these considered together or as separate agenda items? Improvement grants for one and planning and marketing grants as two?
Bill, can you refresh our memory from last year? Did we consider them together or were they separate?
We take them together just because we didn't separate them out because they really come out of the same pot. So, but you can do individually or you can do them together. Do all of them together is what I would suggest, or individually.
With that,
You could move to accept the recommendations of the Historic Tourism Committee if that is what you would like to do.
okay,
That would include those types of grants.
okay. Thank you, Your Honor. With your indulgence, I'd move to accept the recommendations of the Heritage Tourism Committee.
Second?
Yes, I'll second that.
The motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 So the motion passes. So we have the $239,215 to the improvement grants and $23,000 to the marketing grants, planning and marketing grants. Okay? Is there any other items to come before the committee?
Madam Chair, other than trying to schedule something in May, which you don't have to decide today, but I thought we would mention it. Brandon's not here, but we do need to as a heads up, schedule something in May to discuss the continuing the 1% for the budget purposes. We don't have to decide what goes into the 1% in May, just, I think, deciding whether to continue that or not, so that Nikki and Brandon can budget for that, and then the discussion can continue through the budget sessions.
And in May, when are the new committees created? Is it May?
Yeah, Chairman Schwartz, I know that Deputy Mayor Hiller is working on that list and should be reaching out to people maybe even by the end of this week.
Okay, so it just depends on who's going to be on the committee, and then you have to elect a chair and all that, so, okay. What, do you want us then to, after the meeting, kind of get our calendars together to try to see if there's a date that we could meet?
That'd be fine.
Pending the committee selection?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do that. If there's no other business to come before the committee, I think we're adjourned. Thank you.